Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session on diversity in the port sector and why that is an important topic. My name is Patrick Verhoeven. I'm Managing Director of the International Association of Ports and Harbors, which is a network of about 160 ports around the world. And we also have all other sorts of members that are connected to the port industry. It's my pleasure to moderate this session. We have a great panel with us, and I will ask them in a minute to introduce themselves. We have Mr. Upul Jinadasa, who is the COO of South Asia Gateway Terminals. We have Ms. Sakura Kuma, who is the CEO of APM Terminals in Japan. And we have Ms. Ingrid Vanstrels, the Business Development Advisor at the Port of Antwerp. At the end of our debate, we will also have a presentation by Ms. Frida Youssef, and she's Chief Transport Section of the Trade Logistics Branch at UNCTAD. And she will share at the end of this debate some statistics and some research findings with us on how gender diversity is currently applied within the port sector. And I think that will give a nice addition to the discussion that we're having here. But before jumping into the topic, let me ask our distinguished panel to say a few words about themselves. And Upul, if I could start with you.
Thank you, Patrick. And it's my pleasure to be part of this panel, and then looking forward to sharing my thoughts and ideas about this very current and a very important topic, not only for this industry and globally. My name is Upul Jinadasa, and my background, I'm an IT professional, and I started my career with American President Lines as a regional IT head, and then I joined SAGT, and I'm the only surviving member from the original management team of SAGT. That doesn't give you a clue about my age, but during my 30 odd years, or little more than that, I've been heavily involved in the IT aspects of the ports and shipping. And then in 2013, I took over operations, and now my role is the CEO, and I'm responsible for both operations, IT, and engineering of the terminal. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Sakura?
Hi, thank you. It's my privilege to be here, having this slot to discuss with everyone on the Maritime SheEO conference 2021. My name is Sakura Kuma. I have been in this shipping industry for more than 2 decades, and among which the port sector occupied 14 years of my career. I start my career in the shipping industry together with NYK, which is a very good employer, give me a lot of experiences, especially for the port-focused career opportunities. So if I look back my past, I have been experienced many roles, many angles of this port industry. I started with merge and acquisitions. We, as NYK, I did in charge of the many projects overseas, the MIA, a lot of projects as an investor. And then I also had an opportunity to relocate it to Los Angeles, a container terminal. We were doing the management of that terminal. And then I also had a very unique opportunity, which also bring me to be connected with Patrick when I was with Yokohama Port. That was from a development angle of port. And now from this year, February, I changed my career with APM Terminal Japan, and I'm the first female CEO in the Japanese port. As all of you might know, even in the OECD countries, Japan, in terms of the diversity, ranked the second worst. But in the port sectors, in the shipping industry, especially port sectors, it's really man-dominated world, especially in Japan. I always found myself the only female in the big meeting rooms, and I kind of get used to it. All in all, I have so much passion about this industry. I have been the investor, developer, and operation. I enjoy my role, and I keep doing that. Very nice to be with you tonight.
Thank you very much, Sakura. And it's really good to see you again indeed. And then we have Ingrid Vanstrels, who is the Business Development Advisor at the Port of Antwerp in Belgium. Ingrid. You're muted, Ingrid.
Thank you, Patrick, for that common mistake. So hello, everyone. My name is Ingrid Vanstrels. I work already 15 years in the logistics sector. So I've always been working more on the land side, if you look at it from a port perspective. I started in logistics, import and export. The city of Antwerp is a real forwarding city, so you have a lot of forwarding companies in Antwerp. I've started my career there. When I started, I think I was very young. I was 20 years old. We've learned some theory about ports, logistics, and I must say, if I look back at it now, I had no clue what was happening in a port in those days. And slightly on, you learn a lot about the port, the environment, logistics. It's a very international world. That's what I liked about it. So I started my career. I had many roles: operations, customer service, sales, in the forwarding sector. And then 3 years ago, I applied for a role at the Port of Antwerp Authority, which for me, I was very attracted by it because it was a new team that they were creating, and a team that was specifically focusing on indirect customers of a port authority. The indirect customers of the port authority are, for example, shippers and forwarders, because they don't have a direct customer relation with the port, but those are, of course, also the parties deciding where cargo is going to and how it is being transported. So that's where we started establishing a relationship with shippers and forwarders. A lot of projects have been settled now. Today, I'm the business development manager for shippers and forwarders, so it means that I will also focus more on a long-term relationship, look for opportunities, collaboration, etc. So that's my career in a nutshell of 15 years.
Thank you, Ingrid, and most welcome, and welcome to all of you for this discussion. Before we actually go into the debate, maybe a few opening comments from my side on the topic and the main question, which is, why is diversity important to the port sector? Of course, our debate and the debate of the entire conference is a lot focused on gender diversity, but I think we can easily extend what we are discussing here also to the broader definition of diversity, bringing in also cultural differences, nationality, age, and other aspects. And why is diversity important for us as a port industry? I think probably the answer is not very different from other sectors. I think what I see is that why this is important is because we need new insights. We need a new, highly skilled and multi-talented workforce in this industry that can deal with some of our challenges, not in the least, I would say, the continuous flow of disruptions that our society and our sector in particular is facing. It requires a different mindset. And looking specifically at ports and shipping, I was reading actually an interview some weeks ago with another fellow citizen from Antwerp, Katrien Scheers, who is the CEO of Fastlines, short sea shipping operator. And I think she nailed it really. She said that the maritime industry and other traditional industries, they've been for a long time been expressing success in very traditional revenue, volume-based criteria. Whereas today's society is much more about value added and sustainability. And these are other values and require also a different mindset. And that's certainly true for the port sector. I think for a long time, and actually still today, we are measuring our success in number of tons, in number of boxes, or number of passengers. And together with the shipping industry, we're actually a sector that is quite obsessed with size, with economies of scale. And maybe that is a business model that is a bit running out of steam, as the current supply chain crunch is also demonstrating. And I believe that's really where diversity comes in, where you need indeed a workforce that is not so traditionally linked with that call it the traditional view on what a success means for a port. So we need to have much more professional skills on communication, cooperation, customer orientedness, sustainability, and these are really the values I think that today's society and future society is really focusing on. So we need to encourage young professionals to consider a career in our industry. We need to nurture the next level, C-level executives, and that demands, and that's where I really think that Catherine Scheers really got it. We need to consider other business values than those that have we traditionally been shaping our industry. And by focusing on diversity, I think we can achieve that. We can attract and retain employees and to build inclusive cultures. And of course, that means we need to adapt behaviors. We need to adapt systems and processes that will support the creation of such a diverse and inclusive working environment. So that's a few thoughts from me to start our discussion. I suggest we go in 2 rounds. I would like first to get a little bit more of a picture as where we are today in the port sector. And do we see an evolution, hopefully one in the good sense? Are we getting better when it comes to diversity? How much better are we? And what are some of the main barriers that are still today? And I think that would be great to hear from our panel from where they stand. And it's great that we've got also very diverse backgrounds in this panel. You're all working in the port industry, but from very different angles, and you come from different backgrounds with different experiences in logistics, international experience. I think that's great to bring that together here. And then in the second round, I would like to go a little bit more into, the best practices. What can we do? What is our agenda going forward as a sector? What role can we play as organizations, UNCTAD, IMO, IAPH, to get this agenda driving? And then we conclude, as I said, with the presentation by Frida Youssef from UNCTAD, who will share some research findings with us that they have done at global level. So to start with our current state of play, can I ask our panelists, to share their views on where we are in that sector today? How much diversity bias is there still today? What are the main barriers? Where do you see progress? Maybe Sakura, I can start with you. As you said, you've been working on very diverse sides of the industry, shipping line, port operator, terminal operator. You've been in Japan, but you've also been in Los Angeles. You worked for Japanese companies. You work now for a Danish-owned company. So I think you've got a really good helicopter perspective on what's going on the port sector. So I would be interested to get your sort of perspective on where are we today.
Thank you, Patrick. I mean, this is really the topic I really have passion to talk about, actually. People think port is a hardcore environment, working environment. Maybe 50 years ago, people were depending on the physical strengths and carrying bags on their shoulders and do the loading and unloading. In that sense, the physical strengths, if you want to take the physical strengths, maybe you choose men more than women. But that's 50 years ago. But where we are right now is most of the ports, I mean, including especially Singapore, right? The terminal must be very modernized. And there is no physical strength come into play anymore. And can you imagine somebody putting their containers, which is even an empty container is 20 tons. You cannot put it on your shoulder anymore. So we are already in a different era, but people still make judgment based on the tradition, that biased mind. So that is one of the biggest barriers to stop women to coming into this industry. And the second thing is, when you do not have many female in the company, so it kind of becoming a barrier for new entry of female to get into this industry. So I guess where we are right now is, do we make the decision to invite more females in the industry? Taking APM Terminal Japan as an example, we are currently, the female employee ratio is 38%. It's obviously above the industry average. One of the reasons is because APM Terminals Japan focused on the white-collar job, and we outsourced the blue-collar job to the other suppliers. It's one of the reasons. And the other reason is we are really determined when we do the recruit. We try to hire more diversified talent instead of focus on a single one. But when we talk about where we are right now, I think we are still kind of behind, even comparing to the shipping community, comparing to the shipping side. Because right now, a lot of shipping companies, they are more focused in the digitalized, the office work becoming more possible, and the working environment becoming better. The real ship operation is outsourced to the manning company. For that part, still kind of man dominant in my understanding. But there's some sectors getting more and more progresses. But in the poor sectors, we still need to do a lot of work in terms of empowering women. I will stop here because I think I also want to hear from Ingrid and Upul, and maybe we can later on to have some other discussion, because this is really kind of exciting topics, take a lot of time, but I do not want to occupy everybody's time. Let me return it to you back. First of all, Patrick.
Thank you, Sakura. I think what you were saying about this traditional view on port, that it's about hard physical labor, but it's certainly a very important conclusion. And the other one that I found really interesting, because I heard contradictory views on that as well, is whether the port sector is lagging behind when you compare to the shipping industry. And I've heard opposite views as well, as that port sector would actually be a little bit more advanced because of the diversity of professions that exist. But maybe that's a good segue, Ingrid, to you, because you come from a broader logistics background, as you were explaining, and you're still dealing with the logistics sides, with the cargo side, forwarders and shippers within your role, which is, as you already indicated, perhaps not the most traditional role for the Port Authority, because Port Authorities in the past, they've been either dealing with the shipping lines or with the terminal operators, where they have contractual relations. They don't have that with the cargo interests. So maybe from that interesting background, what is your view? Are we lagging behind? Are we making progress? And how do you see that within your company, which employs, I think, over 1,500 people today, the Port Authority? Interested to hear how you see that.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. Well, I certainly agree with which was Sakura was explaining. What I remembered certainly what was culture and tradition. I think the shipping industry in this whole has I wouldn't say an image problem, but we should work on our image and do more marketing towards young people. If you look at the Port Authority here in Antwerp, I think they have been doing a lot of work to have a more equal gender rate working at Port Authority, at the office, and also the workers or the operational people. I think on the operational side, you could still say that it's a little bit more male dominated, but a lot of women are invited to participate at the selections, etc. When you look more at the shipping industry, from the supporting business, customer service, or forwarders, representatives, etc., I must say honestly, from my observation, when I was working through my career, I never experienced this as a male-dominated world. But when you, of course, climb up the ladder slowly on, you see that it's becoming more male-dominated. Certainly the ages is going up. Gender also is male-dominated. So, and I started wondering, why is that? I also joined 2 years ago UNCTAD Belgium, just because I wanted to engage myself and to work on this and to study it. And I don't know the exact figures, and I would really much be interested in hearing the survey result of the woman in this woman in maritime, which is running now, but I don't know if the survey is already finished. So I think we have to work on our image. And the image of a port and what is happening in a port and around it is already starting from a very young age. We already had with our WISTA members previous discussions on what can we do, because in our part of the world here in North Europe, in Belgium, we feel that women get same chances as men. But then still, if you observe it, then the maritime world is still male dominated. And we could ask, why is that? And we feel that when you start educating, but already at a very young age, when you hear stories or you get a view on the world, a port never comes in. If you would see a port and they show perhaps for small children a captain, and the captain is a man, and you start forming an image of the world, and then when you catch up when you are older and you want to start choosing what you will do or working, no woman would think of, I would like to be a captain, or I would like to work in a port. And I think that's something we could be working on all together.
Oh, thank you, Ingrid. Thank you for that. I think it starts with, indeed, as you said, the early age perception of what ports and shipping in general are all about, and then we indeed come with those stereotype images. Upul, if I could bring it to you, you've been, as you said, all your life working in this industry. You've seen the evolution also from where you stand in your company, and maybe you can give us a little bit of perspectives also how you as a company are embracing diversity and gender diversity, but maybe also diversity in a more broader sense.
Thanks, Patrick. And I agree with both Sakura and then Ingrid, and I share some of the concerns that they have expressed. But one thing is very, very interesting to me is that the word male domination. Now, I wish we have the same thing when we go back at Rome as well. So Patrick and you and I can, boast a little bit about that. But jokes apart, and I think we have SAGT, we started back in 99, 30 years ago. And then we wanted to have the very diverse office set up here. We want to attract as much as possible the young, the males and the females both. But unfortunately, we could only attract about 2% at that time. And it was traditionally, as Sakura and Ingrid also mentioned, that both ports and shipping, everybody thinks that, look, traditionally this is male dominated and only the males can achieve whatever that, we are trying to achieve, they are fitting into the roles. But from the day one that we give equal opportunity to the both genders, and we wanted to attract the best talent into our organization. Regardless of any, social, ethnic, or religious, or whatever the denominations. So but with all this, effort that what we have taken, but we weren't able to go beyond 5% even at this moment. But there are reasons for it. I will share with you. And the first thing is that we'll have to make it voluntary. And then, the people, whether it is male or female, they should voluntarily decide to pursue a career in ports. And currently, as Ingrid and also Sakura mentioned, that the people think that this is a bit of a tough job to perform. So therefore, only the males can come, and then the females think that they won't fit in. But that is not the right thing. So the lifestyle changes also affecting now. You come into port work 24/7, day, night, holidays, weekends, everything. So you have to adapt to that environment. So some people doesn't like that. So there is a bit of a situation there as well. But there are positives also now when we are working very closely with the local universities and the trade associations. As Ingrid very rightfully said, look, you have to build up the image, and you have to clear the misconceptions and the misperceptions as well. So we promote the port, and then we let the youngsters know that, look, the port is not that dark that you think it should be. It will be, and then it is very attractive, and it's a nice place to work for. And then we do lots of partnership with them. And then as a promotional campaign, that we take a lot of interns, and we every year that we accommodate about, say, about 50 young undergraduates from various universities, and we take them in. About 50% of that the ladies, and so we take them in, and then we give them an exposure 6 months, and then they learn the whole the port environment, how they work and how to interact with people and all that. And some of them have decided to join us. So that's how we promote the port, the culture, and then for them to realize by themselves, look, the port is not that bad. They think it is. And then with all that, the promotional work and then the interactions that we do, but there are other impediments that we face. That when we employ the female, and then mostly that we can employ them into the supplementary or the support roles. Now, in a port, it's basically the operations and the engineering are the front line, and then the operational roles. But it is tough because of some legal and administrative restrictions that for us to employ the females and then let them work 24/7. So we are working with the authorities now, and we are trying to change the archaic some of the statutes to suit the current the environment, and then the way forward should be predefined. So that we are working on some of those areas with the authorities, but the progress is not that fast. And but we are not giving up, and we are working with them. But then most importantly, that we have found out that in Sri Lanka, the socio-cultural and the family related concerns are also preventing some of these youngsters joining the port because of these the rostered the day-night operations and things like that. Now we can't just turn a blind eye to those, and we have to be we can't make commercial decisions just turning forgetting about that the value proposition there, or the value system rather. So we are working on different options. How do we now say? I think you all must have heard a few days back the New Zealand Prime Minister, when she was on the live Facebook announcing some of the COVID restriction the relaxations in the evening, but her daughter is interrupting her, and then she was to go to bed, and then she wanted the mother to be with her. So this is real. This is something that is happening. So we are mindful of those, and we are trying to find options. Okay, how do we attract the gender balance, but at the same time we don't disrupt the value proposition, the families, and the personal lives. So the solutions that we are looking at, but I think the second round I will talk about the solutions that we are putting in place, and then to encourage and promote, and then to invite or attract more female cadre into the port environment in Colombo.
Thank you very much, Upul. I think that you made several very good points, but I think that the last one about socio-cultural changes, maybe that's something we could maybe go a little bit deeper into before we go into the second round. And I would like to ask Ingrid and Sakura also to shed their light on it. I mean, is that a factor? I mean, do we see cultural differences as a major blocking factor? Are some regions moving faster when it comes to diversity? Maybe Sakura, because you've been in the United States, you've been in Japan, you work now for a Danish company, so you can maybe give us a little bit of perspective on how that how you see that.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And also it comes back to your comment, to your previous comment on the opposite opinion than what I said. A port is behind than the shipping, because somebody told you that port is actually in front of, it's ahead of shipping. I guess I was thinking about that when you make that comment. So it's really the regional differences. From my point of view, I see Europe is most advanced area in terms of diversity in the port and both the shipping industry. And also, like Ingrid just mentioned, the entry level might be the same, but the higher when you go, the more difficult you find yourself get promoted, because you just don't see so many female in the management team, in the leadership. And why is that? Because there's a glass ceilings all over the place. Maybe that glass ceiling come later in Europe, come faster in Asia, but that's just a matter of time. We all have to admit there is actually the glass ceiling, both from the port authority and the operation companies. And I guess the white collar sections, for example, port authority, they are more public sectors. So politically and socially, they would like to give people an image that they encourage the women to join the force more than the private sectors, because private sectors were more focused on the whatever image they have, basically profit, those type of things. The public image is more important for the port authority, and that is why you probably can find more female employee in the port authorities sectors. But again, even the port authority, how many female director, managing director do you know, right? You can ask yourself the questions. But you see many managers, project managers, you know, probably the ladies are involving with the environment. Well, environment safety, actually, this is a very important functions, but those functions are also easily to be regarded as less important than marketing, than sales, right? So you will see more women in the supporting role than the major role. But the culture is changing globally. Now we know safety, environment is a top priority. Sometimes we put them at the equal position into the profit, because that will change the social responsibility of the corporation, of the port authority, of the government. So when the landscape is changing, when the measurement of a success for a corporation, for authority is changing, I think this is a very golden opportunity for females to be more active in promoting many roles from many angles in this industry. And what do you think, Ingrid?
Well, I agree with your observations. I don't have the answer on all those observations, because I'm also wondering myself, where is this glass ceiling starting from? And I don't like to point fingers out to other people or why is it happening. I think perhaps it's also to women to take up their position, each other. Because what I feel is that when I joined WISTA, we have a lot of members. I think we have 120 members in Belgium. We are celebrating 10 years WISTA Belgium within a few weeks. Sometimes when we ask new members, those members have mixed feelings, and they would say, why should I join? Like, it looks like a women's club, or people are wondering, what are you doing? Are you baking cookies or something altogether? You see, like this silly image, and we have to defend it, and we really have to support each other, to collaborate, to share knowledge, and to help each other. And I think it's a reflex that we don't have, or we don't like to expose it. On the other hand, you don't want to be, as a woman, be patronized in the sector and to give positions because they needed a woman in some kind of team. But from the other hand, we need to learn to support each other. I think that's one of my observations, and to dare to speak it out, also to collaborate and to work on this gender equality. So that's my opinion on this.
Thank you, Ingrid. Maybe going back a little bit to that perception and the fact that the port sector is seen as, well, maybe sort of heavy labor industry, but also maybe rather a complex industry where you need a lot of sector-specific knowledge before you can operate in that. There's an interesting research that came out from the University of Antwerp, which actually shows that with the advances in digitalization and automation as a support for any human activities, that will make sure that actually general professional skills like customer orientedness, responsibility, flexibility, cooperation, these values will be as important than the real, the more technical knowledge of the sector. Would you agree with that? That sort of the perception, like, okay, it's all very complicated, or physical labor, or you need to have, you know, very sector specific knowledge of this industry before you can even think of a career. That image is, or that's not just that image, that reality is changing, and that, you know, more general values are becoming much more important, actually. And that would encourage diversity in that sense.
I agree. Certainly with the digitization of the sector, women can be attracted to it and are perhaps even better in those roles with their skills. But there are two things. You just nailed it, Patrick. You say it's the reality. It's what we know because we are in the sector. So what you just say, we perfectly understand what you are saying. But the image of it is not real towards young people. They have no clue what is happening in a port sector and what kind of innovation level we have. And that's where I see a huge gap in our region. You know, we struggle a lot to attract young people to the sector, whether it's man, woman, whatever. We struggle a lot. So the population or the workers in the sector are getting older and older. And for some reason, it's not an attractive sector for young people. And that's where I see still the gap to be covered. So there's a lot of opportunities in the sector, but how do we bring that to young people?
I guess, so from my perspective, that digitalizations and automation will dramatically improve the standard of this industry. I think our industry right now is really going through a transforming period. Even the hardcore, the biased ideas of what ports look like, and that image doesn't attract male anymore, not only female, even male. Right, and I guess for Europe and a country like Japan, the birth ratio is declining. So when the younger people grow up, graduated from the university, which company do they want to choose to join? They do not want this hardcore environment. They will like to be more digitalized or automated. So where our industry right now is really changing toward a world that can attract both male and female equally. Because when the automation and digitalization come more into play, then there is no, the bias, the historical bias will go weak and weaker and weaker, and then will disappear. I think that's a direction we're aiming, we're going through. But just take time, it won't happen in a day.
No, clearly, but you acknowledge in a way that there is that direction going, and it may take maybe another 5 to 10 years before we're really getting there, but the signs apparently are pointing in that direction. Upul, is that also from where you stand? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Patrick, to a certain extent, I do agree. But now, see what happened after the COVID. You know, like some of these, the glass ceilings are overnight shattered. You see, now we never thought that the port can be operated from home, right? And then, you know, since the beginning of last year that we started operating the port, majority of our workforce was at home and then, you know, running the port. And we only had skeleton staff for the execution or the physical delivery. So now there are lots of opportunities come now. The success of a port depends on how do you create value, communicate value, and then deliver value. So now creating and communicating value, I think the females have a much better talent than or equal talent than men. Yeah. So therefore they fit into those roles very much. But when it comes to delivery, the physical execution, yes, you know, there are certain areas that the female can spot in and then, you know, like deliver. But, you know, like when you look at those three areas, you know, like the first two, there is a lot of opportunities for the females to come in. Now again, as Sakura also mentioned, that the technological advancements now of course the ports in this part of the world are not that advanced as the ports in Europe or, you know, like some of the Far East countries. So, you know, like we have more or less, you know, semi-automated or traditionally driven operations. So therefore there is a bit of a toll on the physical delivery. yeah, the physical work. But now the COVID had made us to think, look, okay, this is not the way forward, and we have to now digitalize. And in Colombo and SAGT, we did certain things, or overnight digitalize. For example, the cargo clearance. Now it's a completely digital process, and then the customer service representatives, which were operating from the offices before, now they are doing it from home. So we have a couple of females now working on that. So that kind of things have opened up. And then the what is important is that all of the port roles are in a transformation state now. With the digitalization is happening, that there's no choice. You have to now adapt to those the strategies. And then when this transformation does take place, and there are new roles that are being created, yeah. So we are working with these universities and the trade the partners, and then to right skill the workforce, the youngsters, and then position them for the future. Yeah, and then like whether it is the males or females, then there's a whole lot of opportunities in front of them, and they are fully aware of what these roles are, and then they are fully skilled to and geared towards taking up those roles. So that is what we are now working with the universities and the relevant trading the partners, so that we are constantly spending a lot of time in pursuing those goals.
Exactly, and that actually brings us to our second round, I think, to the best practices and what we can learn from each other. But before we do that, Sanjam kindly allowed me to share the screen, so I can just show you that cartoon that I was hoping to share with you. There we go. Let's hope that that is then an image, becoming an image of the past, of what container handling or shipping and ports are all about. It's a few years old. It was introduced back when the European Commission tried to liberalize cargo handling in ports and allow crews to do self-handling. And this was a cartoon that appeared in the newspapers back then. But that was just a little introduction and moving to our second round of discussion now, which is really about, what are the best practices out there. Maybe we can also talk a little bit about leadership, because I think that's probably one of the factors that we need to move it. And I'd like to start with you, Ingrid, because in that same article that I read where I mentioned Katrien Scheers, there was also an interview with your Chief Communication and Marketing Officer at the Port of Antwerp, your colleague Nathalie Van Impen, and she really spoke about leadership, and she said on gender diversity, she referred to your CEO, who is a man, Jacques van der Meijeren, but she called him a male feminist because he is stimulating, indeed, female staff to climb up that ladder within the company. Would you agree? Is that the way that we can learn also in other ports, that it really has to come from the top, from the CEO level, and then what the role of leadership in a port community?
Yes, indeed, I agree. I like to refer it more to kind of ambassadors of females in maritime. So I totally agree. We have to approach it from both sides. So women need to claim their position, but we need to get support from all the roles in companies, also from CEOs, etc. And I think Jacques is a very good example. Perhaps I would even like to say that some people don't feel comfortable how to approach these matters, or they don't know how to handle it. So that's something perhaps we could all collaborate on it, how to work on this gender equality.
Thank you, Ingrid. Upul, would you consider yourself a male feminist too, when it comes to gender diversity at South Asia Gateway terminals? Maybe you can elaborate, as you were hinting already in the previous round, about sort of the learning curve that your company has gone through, and some of the plans that you have to indeed promote diversity out there within your company.
Yes. Now, as I mentioned there, the prior, we are looking at the talent. And then when we have an opening, and then when we interview the candidates, and then if we have two people, and then one is better than the other, so we don't if that person is a lady or a female, so we try to convince her to join. Yeah. So now we need the talent, and then as Ingrid said, we are not just trying to satisfy some of the the corporate objectives saying that we have so many the females here, and like we just show off, look, like we have 50% of female employment or whatever. But we want to get the talent in, and then the business has to be successful. But we encourage whoever it be, regardless of any differentiation, look, come in and join. So that is the leadership that we have. And then at the same time, that when we have the leadership positions, and we are very openly looking at, and then who is talent, and then like they qualified or suitable, and they get that job. Yeah. So that's the philosophy that we have at SAGT. And then we have some of the like if you look at our deputy CFO, is a female. Yeah. So likewise, like the CNM and the deputy or the manager CNM is a female. So that's why we promote that, and we promote the talent, and regardless of any divisions or whatever. So that's what the philosophy at SAGT.
Yeah, thank you. So that's emphasizing, I think, also the role models that you need in the industry, and I think, Sakura, that you're one of those. I mean, you are at the CEO level at APM Terminals. You functioned at other levels within an organization, both publicly owned, privately owned. What is your view there on best practices and some concrete examples that you could maybe share, maybe also from other companies or ports that you work with?
Well, talking about the leadership, it's a really interesting topic, because this is something that I would really like to share with the panel, and I also want to have your opinions, because you represent in different region, different culture. I would like to, offer this kind of unique situation in Japan, because right now my terminal is located in Japan, and most of the talent I need to hire is local person, and in our organization, and this is not unique here, many of the organization, even not in our industry, when we ask a female to take the responsibility of a leadership, sometimes, many times, we encountered hesitation and refusal. Many of them do not wish to take the leadership role. I mean, this probably only happened in Japan, because the education toward the female here is more like supporting role for the society. Like, you get married, you're becoming a mother, a good mother is staying home and raise children, support your husband, and take care of your parents-in-law, things like that. That's a cultural input. So in the education, in their own experience, when they saw their mothers and the mothers' mothers, there was no leadership in them. So if you ask them to take the leadership, just panic, I mean, I do not encounter this in other countries. I have done projects in China, in Europe. I was stationed in Los Angeles, and I visit so many other countries. I do not see this. I only see it in Japan. And you know me, Patrick, I will always say yes to a challenging role. So it's not really me. But the world is very diversified. It's not only me. We have so many different kind of people here. So I guess in terms of the leadership, hard to say what the best practice is, and each regional challenges or cultural challenges might vary to each other. We need to cope up with that. And I think when we say we need to change the mindset of the employer, we also need to change the mindset of the women, of the employees, the female employees. And how to do that, this is a grand challenge. It's not only done by the industry. We have to change the whole scheme of the society from the education, start from the education. So I guess WeStop is really a powerful organization. I'm really shamed because WeStop Japan, I don't see it's active. I also see it's an opportunity in the future. This is some role that I really need to raise my hand to do something more about that, because we need a flag weavers. We need many flag weavers. If we want to change the mindset, we should show them examples. This is a bright path. This is nothing scary. You don't need to hesitate. And this is something really interesting and not only good for you and for your daughter too. So that's my opinion.
So it's cultural differences which do play a role, as we already sort of found in our first panel as one one of the barriers that we've come across. And you mentioned an organization like Vista, which has been doing great stuff in the many years that it's there, and especially in recent years, I think also the collaboration with IMO and with other international partners, and that maybe brings a general,
such as IAPH,
yeah, and IAPH indeed as well. We work together with them with Vista, and that's maybe the question: because a global association or global platform, of course, brings these cultural differences together, because we got members, and like Vista does, members all over the world. Sort of what a role do you see for these organizations in sort of maybe trying to bridge that particular gap, that particular cultural gap when it comes to diversity in leadership positions? And the question is open to all of you. I mean, who wants to respond?
Since it's an extension to the Vista that I raised up, I would like to take it first. I guess the bridging between the international organizations from the Vista perspective, that would be very beneficial. Co-working with IMO, co-working with IAPH, you know, this is a huge community. Our industry has so many angles, and it makes every sense that bridging Vista brand to as many as possible to the other organizations, ICS, you name it, right? Bingo, and try to interact more so that we can, first of all, get the diversity and inclusion image concept into every intergovernmental organization, international organization in our community. And then that will produce a synergy effect, will reflect back to Vista. And the Vista's action can be a radiation and then gathering all those positive energy back. And that will definitely encourage a lot of women to be more active, to be more bold, and to take the responsibility, to take the driving seat for their own career.
Yeah, maybe I can add to that. If we go back to the scenario which you just explained, Sakura, if you are a woman and you are invited to take up an exciting leadership position, and you would doubt or perhaps even not accept it because perhaps the leadership team is male dominated. And I think it's logic, who wouldn't be scared? If you are invited to take up a position and you are perhaps the only woman, I think it's realistic that you doubt. If you know the existence of these associations like Vista, then you could feel much more supported. You could perhaps feel, okay, I take up this leadership position and I can get back to a whole network of international women who could help you, which are there to help you, and you can talk to other women in the same sector in other countries. And it's a good thought. I feel it also like that. It's a good thought that you have a whole network of female leaders who can support you. So I think that's the role which Vista can play in many countries. And from the other hand, it's waving the flag. That's the role of these associations, and creating a much more better image of the sector. I think that's something we can all do together.
Yeah, I think those are very good points, and I think that brings us also to a wrapping up, at least, of our panel discussion. And given that we have a presentation to conclude this session, what I gather so far, I think in sort of main takeaways is that there is progress, but there's still a lot to do within our industry. I think that's the same for the shipping industry. We're moving in the right direction, but there are gaps, and two major gaps that I noticed is on the operational level, where it seems to be difficult to attract in this case, women to the industry, but there with digitalization and automation, that may be a game changer to open up a much broader range of talent and a more diverse range of people to come into our industry. Has to do also with the perception. The cartoon that I showed is really a thing of the past. A bearded, a captain, you know, and then physical labor. That's clearly the image of the past. I think the technology and digitalization is helping us in that respect. And the other gap is the leadership at leadership level, at top level. There are more and more women within our industry, but once you get to a certain level, and that may differ regionally, how fast that goes, you enter sort of the barriers. And how can we improve that? And there, I think a very clear answer, Ingrid, is what you said, and also, well, all of you said, but it's clearly also roles of associations, organizations like Vista, for instance, to provide that network. It's what we used to have in our sector called the Old Boys Club, which did exactly the same, because I think a lot of people, men, were also terrified getting into this industry. I remember I was when I came in, because it looked so hugely complex and technical and everything. But if you have a peer group that you can rely on and that can give you advice and can say, well, it's not all that bad, you know, and you can grow into the job. That sort of network, and whether it's an all-female network or whether we need to move to more mixed networks, I mean, that's an open discussion, but clearly you need that. You need support from other leaders who have been there, who've been through that process, and who can help you and guide you. And I think that's certainly a very message that I would also take with me for our organization and the Women's Forum that we have in IAPH. Before giving the floor to Frida to give our final presentation, maybe can I ask you, each of you, Upul, Sakura, and Ingrid, to share maybe one key change that you ask people to consider to encourage more diversity in the ports. I'm going to start with Upul, please.
Yes, Patrick, I think the biggest thing that we are driving here is that we are trying to change the perception of the young people at the lowest level possible, so that they develop them for the roles that are emerging now, and then right skilling them, and then, you know, clear all the misperceptions or whatever that they have heard about, the bad about the ports and whatever. So that's what that we want to build. So when you set them up and their attitudes right at that level, then of course, you know, like the growth is assured. But if they don't, then of course, you know, we have a major challenge. So we are focusing on that level at this moment.
Ingrid, your key change, what would it be?
My key change message to all of us is support young people, share knowledge. It's not competition, support each other.
Thank you. And Sakura?
For me, every change can only happen from inside, not outside. So change from ourselves. This is a message for all females. Don't wait until somebody else change the world for you. Change yourself for the world, for a better world. And just like I previously mentioned, be sitting in the driving seat and hold the handle, and you control your career. I know it sounds kind of scary, but there's a brighter future ahead of you. And the best part of it, you're not alone. We're together with you.
Great messages. Thank you all. Thank you, Sakura. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, Upul, who has left us for a very, I found we could have gone on for about another hour. I think it's a really good discussion. But there are unfortunately time constraints, and we would like to hear now from Frida Youssef, the chief of the transport section of the trade logistics branch at UNCTAD, who will share some recent research findings on employment, gender diversity within the port and the maritime sector. So I'll gladly give it the floor now to Frida.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Sanja, for inviting UNCTAD to participate in this important conference on women in maritime transport. So hello to everyone. My name is Frida Youssef. I'm the chief of the transport section at the trade logistics branch of UNCTAD. For those who are not familiar with UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, It is the focal point within the UN system for integrated treatment of trade and development and interrelated issues such as technology, sustainable development, investment finance, and transport. Gender or gender diversity has always been an important aspect of UNCTAD work. We promote gender mainstreaming as key element to achieving inclusive and sustainable development, including in maritime transport. However, although studies towards gender equality have a long history, we observe that this is a different matter when it comes to data supporting studies. The maritime shipping and port sector are traditionally known for being male-dominated. However, we've seen evolution and changes in the sector in recent years, as we've heard also from the panel earlier. Yet, gaining insight and improving understanding of these trends that are shaping women participation in maritime shipping and ports workforce is difficult, and that is because of the limited data that is available on women or female workforce participation and the patterns that are influencing or undermining such development. Lack of data also is undermining the possibility of devising evidence-based policies on gender issues in the sector. So bearing in mind the recognized limitation to gender-related data availability and accessibility, we've recently, in collaboration with Antwerp University, carried out research that was part of a chapter for a book that will be published next year on gender in maritime sector, where we have assessed the state of research and gender-specific data in maritime shipping and ports, determined whether there has been any change regarding the availability of these data and research in the port sector in particular, and also examined whether progress has been made regarding gender mainstreaming in shipping and ports. And in order to carry out this assessment and analysis, we have carried out this work at 3 levels. First, a review of prior academic research for both maritime shipping and the port sector was carried out by our colleagues from Antwerp University, where an extensive review of literature covering gender-related research both in shipping and port sector was conducted, going back to the pre-1990 period. And the literature review helped to identify the main aspects affecting the gender dimension in maritime shipping and ports, that is mainly related to health, empowerment, economic, culture, and education, as we heard also earlier. And one important aspect that came out from this assessment is that most of the literature was really focusing on the issue of seafarer and less on other aspects of the maritime sector and the port issues. So to complement this work, we had also carried out an analysis of gender-related data, which was obtained through selected member ports from the UNCTAD Train for Trade Port Management Program, where the data that was reported from the port performance scorecard of the program was analyzed, and we looked at a period of 2015 to 2020, so it's a 5-year period assessment. And there, the experience shared by selected port have helped in identifying the existing data gap and also the limitation that is related to mainstreaming gender in ports. And to complement this work, we have conducted a survey at UNCTAD in May 2021 across UNCTAD port network to reconfirm in a way, or to support the analysis that was conducted by from the Train for Trade program, port program scorecard. And unfortunately, the input that we received through the survey just confirmed in a way the traditional stereotype about the type of job function that can be fulfilled by women, and that still exists, and of course the gap that exists in terms of data and more segregated data in relation to disaggregated data, in relation to gender-related issues. So now allow me to share with you a few slides that explain in a way the analysis that we've conducted and some of the observation that came out from this assessment. So to start with, as we can see, the approach that we have taken is based on 3 levels: the literature review, the port performance scorecard that was established by the UNCTAD Port Management Program Train for Trade, as well as the survey that we carried out with the mainly port entities from the UNCTAD Port Management Program. In terms of the observation that came out, we can here look at the breakdown of gender participation by regional and functional role, and it shows here as we can see that Europe has relatively higher female participation in port activities. When we look at the management, we see also most of the regions have women participating in these activities, whereas in port operation, Asia seems to have the higher participation of female in port operation, and with cargo handling, we see Europe dominating, Africa declining to a certain extent over recent years. So, and also one, like I mentioned earlier, an important issue here is really the data gap availability, and that was not, or maybe not specifically focusing on gender, and it was very difficult to go further in the assessment and the analysis. Now, in terms of the survey that we conducted, where we had about 50 ports, mainly from the Train for Trade Port Management Program, we looked at ports in developing countries, namely Latin America and the Caribbean and developing Asia, that is excluding Japan and South Korea. And it again, it confirms the stereotype that still exists in relation to port activities, and where we have seen that 30% of the respondents did confirm that there are still jobs that are occupied mainly by men, predominantly men positions or job activities. And this is very much in relation to the work that is the operation, that is at the operational level, at the core operation activities of the port, and that is harbor marine, stevedoring, dock worker, cargo handling, for example. And this is because these jobs are considered to be high-risk job, and then can have also can require physical strength. And in response to the next question, where indeed it confirmed again this observation, is that the most of the respondents confirmed that management are the position where we can see mainly female, or predominantly management positions are the positions where are predominantly occupied by female. This is followed also by IT and other professional services, as well as cargo handling operation and other operations like security and health activities or health-related activities. In terms of data collection, again, we have seen that we've observed that most of the port respondents have confirmed that they have in place a data collection and performance tracking system. However, this is not very much focusing on, or not exclusively focusing on gender-related aspects. And the reason for that is that it's mainly due to capacity constraint, or maybe the priority that is given is not really gender focused, but other key performance indicators are given a priority to the detriment of gender, as well as 31st, I mean, this was more or less 50% of the respondents confirming that gender is not a priority. 34% confirmed that this was not possible due to limited awareness, and other in relation to little priority that is given to gender in this regard. However, 90% of the respondents expect technology to be a game changer not only in port performance and port operator, but also in data collection and gender segregated data. Hence the importance of technology and the role that the technology will play at all levels in this regard. Now, in terms of conclusion, based on all this assessment and analysis, we can say that gender equality and related data is still at an early stage, and there remain stereotypes about jobs to be fulfilled by women in maritime shipping and ports. And like I said, technology will play an important role in this regard. There's also women that the women positions are often less specialized in technical aspects, and their participation in maritime shipping and import label is still low and vary by region. And for that, also we've heard there are different reasons for that, including tradition, including also culture, or also perception of the sector. And hence it's important here, and we've heard it earlier, to change the image of the sector, to show the potential that is out there for women to participate in the sector, and to see also a sort of career development as well. So it's important to work at these different levels: the capacity building, the image change, the potential of the sector to support gender and gender mainstreaming. There's also a need to collect more data information to track gender issues, not only at port level, but also at country level or even at regional level. And this should become in a disaggregated level. It's very important to have this level of details in order to support any formulation of gender sensitive policies or research as well. And data collection system, like we also noted, is not fully capturing all the elements that are required to provide this in-depth analytical scope and support advancing in this agenda. Reiterating also the role of technology as a key enabler to support and improve data collection system. Now, as a way forward, and to respond to the question that was asked at the beginning by the moderator, Patrick Verhoeven, what is the role of regional organizations? I would say, looking in particular at this aspect of tracking and monitoring gender equality in maritime shipping and ports, I think organizations, international organizations, regional organizations, and all relevant stakeholders do have a role to play in supporting closing the gap of data and research, and to refine the data and establish a baseline data on gender-related aspects in maritime shipping and ports. And an example of initiative in this respect is to establish an observatory to monitor, track, quantify the gender dimension, and to study gender equality in maritime shipping and ports. And for that, UNCTAD look forward to collaborating with all of you and sharing your views and experience and also partnership to define how to move forward in this regard. And that, I come to the end of my presentation, and I thank you all for your attention. And again, thank you for inviting UNCTAD to participate in this panel. Thank you.